Hey, you gotta get me out of here. You gotta get me. He's gonna kill me. You gotta get me out of here, please. If I suddenly stop wearing this lab coat mid-recording, it's like 106 outside and I don't want to be roasting all night, so... You know, Mega Man. Everyone knows Mega Man. He's like one of the few non-Nintendo mascots in the early days that isn't a completely dead franchise. I mean, I think the last new thing that came out for Mega Man was like an NFT collection in 2024, so... I don't know, selling overly expensive JPEGs of robots that coincidentally just destroy the environment to keep making them is like... It's a pretty wily plot, Capcom. I've got this weird relationship with Mega Man because it's one of those series I knew about, but through totally different means. By the time I had enough brainpower to press the buttons while looking at the screen, the main Mega Man series was dead and the X series was shambling along with some very interesting sequels.
Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground!
My first real foray into Mega Man was with the third series in the early 2000s, the Battle Network series of toys. Yeah, I didn't and I still haven't played Battle Network either, but I sure as shit had plenty of toys for some reason. I was that kid that would buy any toy I thought looked cool and just made up insane reasons to mash them up into one big storyline. Sonic fighting Bumblebee? I mean, sure, why not, man? The TMNT fighting Dragon Ball characters? I mean, Goku solos their entire universe, but like, Michelangelo has some pretty cool nunchucks. So of course I was gonna buy this anime boy in blue armor with a gun for hand. Are you kidding me? That was like the perfect power fantasy for an 8 to 10-year-old. I didn't know what the fuck a Proto Man or a Guts Man were when I was a kid, but like, sometimes you just gotta buy things based off of the rule of cool. I remember renting one of the collections on the PS2 as a kid, and I specifically remember not clearing a single Robot Master stage because I was so abysmally dog shit. That soured my entire view of the Mega Man games as these platformers that look and sound really cool, but felt like walking through a field of tacks just to get through. Like, yeah, I could get through it and be pissed off all night, or I could just go play Pokemon. I'm part of the problem. And that's the mindset I've kept for a long time. Mega Man being these balls-shattering platformers to get through, only to have another sequel waiting right around the corner. It was an incredibly daunting idea to do this video when I tried to piece out how many games I wanted to play. But because Capcom was churning these games out like cheap t-shirts, now I'm stuck with 6 fucking games. I thought it was crazy that Rare got 3 Donkey Kong games out in like quick succession. You're telling me they pumped 6 of these games out on the fucking NES? They barely knew how to like code a good video game. This game came out 1 year after Super Mario Bros. So here's how this is gonna work this time around. Usually I'd split the video into sections based on one game, but because we've got so many to get through, I'm gonna pair them up. First section being about Mega Man 1 and 2, then 3 and 4, 5 and 6, you're smart, you'll get it. That way we can keep the video going at a decent pace, talk about the changes at significant parts of the series, stuff like that. I don't think I'll get as caught up in the smaller details in every single game, but that's just the nature of the beast when Capcom drops 6 grenades into my lap like a bundle. I said 6 grenades. I spoiled the joke. I don't think I'll get as caught up in the smaller details in every single game, but that's just the nature of the beast when Capcom drops 6 games into my lap like a bundle of grenades. This is gonna be a little experimental of a video, so if anything goes wrong, like, blame Capcom for putting this poor blue fuck on as much merchandise as Mickey Mouse. In the meantime, while I'm getting ready for this first batch of games, you guys should take a sip of this subscribe tank. You're gonna need the energy to get through this, I guarantee it. Alright, so I've never really figured out how, like, teleportation in Mega Man works. Do I have to press a button or something? Ah! In comparison to the other mascots this time around, Mega Man feels incredibly ambitious for what it sets out to do. Mega Man 1 only came out around 2 years after Super Mario Bros., and this period was like the Wild West. You got plumbers, you got Dracula, you got ninjas. If you had an idea on at least one guy that could code, you could make just about anything into a game. So when Mario blew open the doors and made people realize that video games didn't have to just be beeps and boops and ugly-ass E.T. for the Atari, suddenly everyone wanted to make good games. When you see the success of this agile Italian bastard, there's a pretty easy train of thought to follow to replicate Nintendo's Money Factory. We make Mario, but now he has a gun. The kids are gonna love it. Quick, start printing the Mega Man branded pistols. Get the NRA on the phone. Of course, Mario and Mega Man don't really have much alike other than a 12-foot vertical, but if you were a grandma getting your kid a video game for Christmas and you were struggling to cope with the ever-evolving technological landscape that showed no sign of stopping and would only increase in the coming decades, I mean, these guys basically look the same. Don't worry, it's gonna happen to you too. At its core, Mega Man is jumping and shooting, and that's about it. Everything in the game is solved by either jumping it or shooting it, just like the founding fathers wanted. But I don't think that's what Mega Man's best at least in the early games. Jumping and shooting is pretty basic in comparison to how the game is built around letting the player dictate their own experience. I think Mega Man is most famous for non-linear gameplay with the different Robot Master stages. Unlike other games around the same time, like your Mario, your Castlevania, your Ninja Gaiden, the order in which you go through the game is totally up to you. Every boss gets scrapped by every weapon, I mean technically speaking, so there's no disadvantage for any stage that you choose. You don't like the way one of these chuckle nuts is looking at you? Choose any of them, indiscriminately, and go on a rampage. It's really remarkable that Capcom was able to make a sort of non-linear, pick-your-own-adventure style of gameplay on the NES. It wasn't something you'd seen outside of point-and-click adventures, games with actual gameplay in them. Being able to choose your own Robot Master, whichever level you wanted to go to first, or even leave and go to another level if you got hard stuck in the one you chose. What I'm saying is that this is the Dark Souls of NES platform. Playing as Mega Man is a slower experience than something like Mario. You don't have a sprint button, levels are more complex so you can't just go straight from one side to the other. I was worried that this slower design might lead to levels feeling tedious or obnoxious to get through. If a game is hard, the last thing I want is to get stuck in levels that drive me nuts. Sonic 1, I'm talking about Sonic 1, I'm talking about how dogshit Sonic 1 is, I hate Sonic 1. Mega Man sets the series' foundations extremely early and efficiently. It feels a lot closer to games like Castlevania or Metroid, where the pace is deliberately slower to allow the player time to adjust. This allows developers to make each part of the stage feel like a unique challenge. Mega Man's moveset, at least early on, is limited to running, jumping, and your basic buster shot. And while that doesn't sound like a lot of variety, each level is purposely crafted with this simple moveset in mind. You're never gonna reach a section that requires a certain ability just to progress, since you could have chosen any of these stages as the first level. The more comfortable you get with Mega Man's controls, the faster that the stages start to feel. No one stage is longer than any other, and it gets to the point where you get to the boss door without even realizing you blew through just an entire level. You'll be in and out of the stage before you even know it. Reminds me of my ex-wife. I'm so lonely. But this short but dense design of the Robot Master stages was intentional in the development of the game. When I look back on Mega Man's gameplay, I found myself thinking about individual stages favorably, even if none of them did anything particularly unique. And I think that's because while challenging, and a heaping help and a bullshit, they never overstay their welcome. I'm going to be referencing an interview with Akira Kitamura, one of the creators and planners for Mega Man, from the short-lived manga serial Rockman Maniacs. Okay, so quick clarification from the editing booth. So Maniacs started in 1997, only went for about a year, and then it was reprinted a few times throughout the years, and the interview between Kitamura and Ariga is from a 2011 reprint, I think. There's a lot of really conflicting information, but just know when I reference Maniacs, I'm referencing a reprint with a new interview from 2011. Okay, thanks, love you. Kitamura's conversation with the artist and author of the manga, Hitoshi Ariga, sheds a light on the early stages of the Mega Man design process. If I end up shortening the way that I refer to the interview, I'll still cite it properly, just I don't want to keep saying Rockman Maniacs and everything like that. I'm citing my sources up front so I don't end up being the subject of a multi-hour video essay on plagiarism. You will never take me alive! In this interview, Kitamura explained that he had two goals when creating Mega Man. All stages could be beaten within an hour, and the game could bring players back for multiple playthroughs. And considering that I've beaten Mega Man 1 twice, both for footage and to get my thoughts, I think that both of those goals were accomplished with flying colors. Even if I think the gameplay of Mega Man is basic, it's basic in a way where it still feels fun to play. I keep comparing it to Mario, perhaps unfairly, but to me it's a mirror of what early platformers can be. Both of these games are simple, fairly short, and set the stage for an entire franchise's identity. But whereas Mario 1 feels like trying to eat a bowl of glass, Mega Man 1 is a lot more engaging and rewarding to play. Like I said before, each stage is built with the idea that it could have been any player's first choice. Mega Man's basic moveset is perfectly capable of carrying you from the beginning to the boss fight. While some Robot Master weapons are useful at moving a little faster, your Mega Buster isn't a slouch either, able to take out the opposition in just a few shots. And sure is a good thing the designers don't put enemies like in places you can't shoot or can't predict. These little gumdrop enemies, they can eat shit. Sometimes it's easier just to book it through them instead of letting them take a huge chunk of your health off. It sucks. Look at them. Look at the smug aura coming off of this fucker's face. It knows what its purpose is. It knows its entire existence is just to fuck with you, and it revels in it. There's a lot of this jump scare enemy design in the game where like they'll purposely put obnoxious enemies in places that you can't predict. Like enemies that'll just jump out of pits or, and this is my absolute favorite, having enemies spawn on the same edge of the screen where you're climbing a ladder. Finally, I can get to the next part of this stage. Boo, gotcha! It's not as aggressively unfair or player-hating as something like Mario 1, where stages can be relentless with enemy placement and spamming. Remember, everything can be cleared in about an hour for a skilled player, so it's not like there's a lot of room to place enemies in traps. Instead, it's about strategically combining various enemies to create the illusion of a complex level. For example, a Lek-Man stage is extremely vertical and requires you to take multiple ladders with obstacles. If you think about what you're doing, it's just holding up or down to climb a ladder and get to the next room. But sometimes you're accosted by lightning strikes that from exposed wires on the sides. Or these vases. And it's like, oh wow, fuck, I gotta dodge all this shit on the ladder until you realize you can, lift one hand off the ladder and shoot the things coming at you. It's probably going to take a few volts to the brain to figure out you can do one of the two other things you can normally do on the ladder. Why the fuck didn't I think about shooting them sooner? Why am I so stupid? Mega Man 1's a little rough around the edges, with some occasional technical issues here and there. There's a lot of slowdown when there's too many enemies or projectiles on the screen, and occasionally the game eats your inputs if you try to do too many actions. It definitely makes some deaths feel a little more unfair, especially ones that eat your jump and send you tumbling into pits. I also say that, while I think the levels are pretty decently designed and don't overstay their welcome, the bosses leave a lot to be desired. I feel like I'm really hard on boss fights, especially in earlier games. Obviously I'm not expecting Sekiro level choreography and performance from an NES boss fight, but at the same time, it feels like the game's philosophy falls apart when you reach a Robot Master. Yeah, technically speaking, you could beat every single Robot Master with just the Mega Buster, but the problem is, with the way that the bosses are designed, it makes that prospect a little fucked. It's annoying to try and beat Gutsman with the Mega Buster because of his full-screen stunning slam. It's annoying to try and kill Fireman with the Mega Buster because he just won't stop fucking shooting. But boss difficulties feel swayed to needing the boss weaknesses, especially when it comes to the refights later into the game, and especially when it comes to the actual final bosses of the game. This Yellow Devil motherfucker, I hate this guy. I used the Sparkman cheese. I just kept pausing to kill this naked Simpsons fuck. It's hard to talk too much about Mega Man 1 because it's the foundation of the franchise. It's like complaining that the support beams of my house looked like shit because none of the walls were hiding them yet. but while I think it's a little rough around the edges, I was more than happy to play through it twice with almost no issue. It's a good game, a solid start, and remarkably player-friendly for this era of video games. But like the ending of the game says, the never-ending battle continues until all destructive forces are defeated. Real quote, by the way. I think that NRA joke at the beginning was less of a joke. Even though Wily was defeated, there's no telling what types of enemies and challenges lie on the path ahead. And sure enough, just a few years later, Capcom would release...
It's over, Mega Man! I've drawn you as the Virgin Quick Man, and myself as the Chad Woodman.
You know, thinking about it, I really did like what Mega Man brought to the table. Great pace, simple but fun gameplay, and it really isn't that hard to jump back in when you're still itching for more. Considering the gap between 1 and 2 was about 2 years, give or take, I could have seen myself replaying the game over and over waiting for the sequel. And then, when you'll finally load it up and get that start screen... When I heard that theme, I had to just pause, because that's the Mega Man theme. Like, he's him at this moment. If a dumb, hedgehog-pilled idiot like me knows this theme, you know you've gone all platinum. Like, goddamn, Capcom isn't playing this time. That asking shit. It's hard to overstate how much of an upgrade Mega Man 2 is, from the larger aspects that would go forward to every other sequel, to the smaller choices that make the game feel smooth like butter. If Mega Man was just the prototype for the franchise, Mega Man 2 feels like the true realization of all its ideas. I know we're only 2 games in, but I think it's gonna be really tough for others to top it. What struck me the most about Mega Man 2 was the overall presentation of the game. From the intro cutscene and generational banger of a theme, to the level select screen having more personality, to even the stages and bosses having way more care put into the little details. While stages shared enemies, now each one has a curated roster of cannon fodder for you to just mow down, like a frog that spits out smaller frogs in Bubble Man stage, or just robotic wildlife. Like, really? Really, Woodman? Just rabbits? That's the best thing you could come up with? Why is it breathing fire? Why are there 3 of them? Oh god, everything's on fire. This sucks. Crabs? Why the fuck is Wily making crabs? I like animals. Oh, what? Because I'm evil? I can't have hobbies? Fuck you. It feels like there was a better understanding of what the Mega Man formula should be. What doesn't work as well in Mega Man 1 is improved here, and what already worked well feels even better. While I wouldn't say it's perfect, it feels like the best possible outcome for the Mega Man series so early on. Stages feel like they've been given the biggest facelift from the previous entry. While the first levels didn't feel bad or boring, it always felt like the team wanted to do a lot more. I think theming is incredibly important because the stages are as much of a character as the bosses. You don't want your stage to feel generic or boring considering it's a majority of the game's run, and a good stage enhances the experience of hunting down each robot master. Metal Man's stage is a great example of what theming can and should feel like. The platforms and ceilings are stylized to look like gears in a machine, with more cogs placed in the background to reinforce that. Add on the more industrial soundtrack, at least what they could do with the sound chip on the NES, of course, and you've got a great metallic themed stage to run through. Who made these little clowns? I'm just curious because, like, doesn't every robot in the Mega Man universe have, like, a specific job or something? Like, was Pennywise Man always in the metal factory dancing on a cog or something? Or is this just what he thought he wanted to do with his life? Or, like, I'm a millennial with an obsession with Sonic. I gotta know the deep lore. Metal Man's stage isn't an outlier either. Each stage feels appropriately and thoroughly combed over to make them feel like the domain of one of the bosses. Loading into Flame Man's stage feels like you're laying siege to some underground lava power plant. Airman's stage is covered in clouds and full of death pits that makes it feel like you're dangerously close to breaking orbit. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on with Crash Man's stage. Like, I guess he just decided to hang out in the Windows Pipe Dream screensaver or something, and then there's, like, all these birds that come in when you're trying to climb all these ladders. This fucking sucks. I hate you, Crash Man. Talk about a crash out, am I right, folks? This is an accent I'm doing, fuck me. Again, Kitamura's philosophy of getting in and out of all these stages in about an hour is fully intact here. Like, everything moves fast enough to feel satisfying, but it never feels piss easy. From, like, the enemy design, to the general obstacles, to even just the stage lengths. Everything is perfectly paced. Except for the invisible blocks that show up in a pattern. Holy fucking shit, this is the worst mechanic that Mega Man continues to use. The one in Flame Man stage is so obnoxious and it's really long. I ended up using the rocket item just to get across safely. I do not vibe with this obstacle. Also, I don't know why they decided to give Woodman, an objectively silly Robot Master, one of the best songs in the entire game. It's up there with the first Wily Castle track for how good it is, but it's among esteemed company. I don't think it's controversial to say that Mega Man has some of the best gaming soundtracks as a whole, but I do think it might overtake even some of Nintendo's best on the NES. Like, I think Zelda 2 and Mario 3 have phenomenal music, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to the sheer variety and quality of the tracks, I think Koji Kondo better take a step back. The real king is in town. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's leaving a nice char down in the comments. Go ahead, come on, chime in. I love the smell of burning comments in the morning. It's not all sunshine and unicorn farts, though. There are some inconsistencies when it comes to the design philosophy, especially when it comes to boss fights. Some of these bosses are piss easy. Metal Man is one of the easiest first bosses I've ever done in a video game, and his weapon, like, drops Flash Man, Woodman, Bubble Man like they were made out of tissue. But while some bosses barely put up a fight like Metal Man, others feel like they were designed to be a one-man army to kill the player. Like, yeah, Woodman is an easy boss when you have the right weakness, but it still feels like a DPS check with the way he just spams projectiles. Same with Airman. Very easy boss, but the problem is projectile spam on top of a pushback mechanic, and it becomes a fucking nightmare. Also, Quickman is just kind of a piece of shit. Like, not even just the boss fight with him rushing around with projectile spam, very cool, but his whole stage is just frustrating. It's iconic, I get it, it's very cool in theory, but in practice, I'd rather put my Mega Buster in a paper shredder. Also, the weapon he's weak to only does half of his health, so get fucked. Better adjust, dickhead. You can tell they were trying some new things to keep it from getting too stale. There's this whole fight in Wily 2 where it's not actually against a specific enemy, it's against the defense system in the room. Bunch of little nipples all over the walls that can only be destroyed by the Crash Bomb. And walls that can also only be destroyed by the Crash Bomb. With no ability refills. Ah, fuck. I mean, it wasn't the worst boss fight, but I wasn't expecting CBT. You know, Crash Bomb torture. Also, Wily made like a giant dragon robot that he keeps in a pitch black room. Do you think he makes this shit just for fun? Just so he can go like, yes, Mega Man, fight the dragon! It's not all doom and gloom though. There's a lot of really nice quality of life improvements that makes it less daunting to get through the game. You know, it's really hard to sight read levels sometimes, especially with some stages that are really mean and insta-kill the player like Quick Man or Bubble Man. I'm not getting over it, man. Look, I understand that the Quick Man dropping sections are iconic and all, but I hate them. They suck. It sucks. It's bad. It's ass! One thing that's really nice is that enemy pickups are significantly more generous this time. You're way more likely to see large health or weapon energy drop from random enemies, and it feels like it balances out the difficulty. You don't have as many death gauntlets like in Gutsman stage, where they clearly knew how much you were going to be struggling with health to get through there and left a pickup at the end. It was so obnoxious playing Mega Man 1 if you're on low health, and then you'd kill an enemy hoping to get health, and it just drops one of those score pellets. It's like, oh yay! My score's higher, but oh no! I'm missing a leg! And hey, this is the introduction of a series staple, E-Tanks. I think these get balanced out a little bit more in the later games, but I don't really know that for sure. What I do know is that I try my best to hoard these fucking things like a dragon. They're not that hard to find, and I never found myself hurting for one, but I think they encourage the player to lock the fuck in. Mega Man 2 isn't very long, just like the first one, and I gotta say, like, I really fell in love with this game, man. I played through it twice just to make sure I got everything I wanted out of it, and like, outside of my like small qualms with like the Quick Man bullshit, this game is great. I loved every second of it. There's so much fun to be had here. Between Mega Man 1 and 2, Capcom set an extremely powerful foundation for the franchise to go forward. An easily accessible pick-up-and-play game with extremely replayable stages that makes you want to boot up another playthrough. It's the type of addictive gameplay that I really haven't felt since the Metroid video, and even then it took a bit of innovation to get there. Meanwhile, Capcom hit 2 home runs in a row. No wonder he's the mascot of the company. And with that, the first 2 games are done. We're a third of the way through, and if the rest are gonna be like this might be a pretty easy video. For now though, take a break if you need to, go chug some E, and I'll meet you over in the next section, alright? Oh god, why does it still hurt? One of the first notes I have for Mega Man 3 is like just the name Hardman in all caps, so I think we're starting off great. So I really dug the first 2 games in this series, and I was pleasantly surprised because like usually the first couple games in this series are like, they're not bad, but they're never my favorites, you know. Mario 1, Zelda 1, Metroid 1, they're all good in their own ways, but they don't have that spark yet. And with a roughly 2-ish year gap between the previous game and this one, I'm sure Capcom pulled out all the stops and really polished up that formula down to a fine detail, right? Mega Man 3 feels weird, just really weird. Off the bat, I'm gonna say it's not unplayable. It's not like a sin against God that this game exists. But when you get here straight from Mega Man 2, things feel a little funky. It still feels like Mega Man, it still plays like Mega Man, but it's like someone took everything from Mega Man 2 and just moved it all 1 pixel to the left. Without mincing words, Mega Man 3 feels like a step back from the previous entries. If it weren't for the E-tanks and the slide move, I think you could have easily slotted this in between 1 and 2. Again, not unplayable, not bad, but it feels like something went wrong. I don't like being the guy that goes like, oh, this game runs like shit. I spent most of my life playing games on consoles. 4K textures and 120 FPS have no effect on me. I played Sonic 06 on a base 360. I was there in the trenches. So believe me when I say that this game has some pretty significant problems that felt like they were solved just 1 game prior. And I did some digging around wondering about the development of the game, and I think I figured out why this game feels so unpolished. In a 2007 interview with Nintendo Power Magazine, rest in peace, Fly High King, Keiji Inafune, one of Mega Man's creators and resident Kickstarter scammer, talked about why Mega Man 3 was one of his least favorite entries. He explains that, I was forced to put the game out before I thought it was ready, and we lost the main planner along the way, so I had to basically fill that role to finish the game. Now, in and of itself, being a developer and being forced to put out any game that's only like half done cooking is a shitty situation, and I'm glad we don't have to worry about it anymore. But then he goes on and continues in the interview saying that when there was only around 2 months left before the game was supposed to come out, they still had about 50% of the game left to finish. Oh boy, I sure do love the game industry. I think what bothers me the most is how much slowdown this game suffers from in places that it really shouldn't. Places where only like 2 small enemies and Mega Man are on screen slow to a crawl. Most of the time it's just inconvenience, not enough to really cover your very real and crippling skill issue. But considering how often it appears, it makes everything feel just a little lesser. I mean, the whole game feels really unstable as a whole. There's flickering on the Robot Master screen, enemies and projectiles flash in and out when there's too much going on, it all just feels unfinished. And I can't blame the dev team considering how hard they were forced to crunch down and get the game to market. It's just really disappointing considering how I was feeling about 1 and 2. I knew something was wrong when we had this peak-ass intro screen before, and now we got downgraded back to this Mega Man 1-ass title screen. Ooh. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that shit's jamming, wait a minute. Okay, I've been pretty negative about the game for reasons outside of the devs' control. Let's talk about some of the better parts of a bad situation here. As always, the music is absolutely on point with every stage. I don't think it hits the same highs as Mega Man 2, but a lot of the stage themes are genuinely really fucking good. Gemini Man, Shadow Man, Needle Man, they're easily up there with some of the best stage themes in the series. And if you can get over the tinnitus-inducing whistle from the Proto Man theme, I think it rivals the Mega Man 2 intro theme as one of the best songs in the series. Like, every time you hear that song, if it's in like a stage or at a pivotal moment in the story, you know some cool shit's about to go down. Oh yeah, Proto Man's here now, huh? I guess that's kind of a big change. Of course I was going to be a complete simp for Proto Man. I think Mega Man has the better design for like a main hero. Proto Man just has all the aura. Like, he's got the shades, he's got the scarf, he's got the cool ass theme. Like, it's all just cinema. I think Mega Man 3 starts shifting the series to tell something of a more thorough and quote-unquote serious narrative. It's the first game where the world tries to expand with more than just Mega Man, Wily, and the Robot Masters. And while technically speaking you need the actual game manual to fill in the story, the game does a remarkable job at adding these little cutscenes in at important moments. They mainly show up near the end, but it shows that there was a serious attempt at giving the game more depth than just Robot Genocide Simulator. Like shit, even in the way that they reveal who Proto Man is in the credits feels perfect. Hold on a minute, back up, roll those credits back a little bit. Someone tell me why the first, like, canonical female character in this entire franchise is a cleaning housemaid girl that Dr. Light made. Like, I'm starting to learn a little bit too much about you, Light. Also, hey, first game with Rush, Mega Man's dog companion. They had these little item abilities back in Mega Man 2, and I knew they eventually became the Rush abilities, but I didn't know he was introduced this early into the franchise. Usually they start adding on, like, the funny animal companion when a franchise is already on its last legs. Alright, enough being nice to the multi-million-dollar company. Time to make some enemies. Even if the technical problems weren't there, there are fundamental issues with the design of the stages in almost every single stage. And this isn't coming from sort of skill issue, oh, I am bad at the game sort of place. The game functionally has problems with how it is designed. To me, what makes a game feel difficult but fair is how you design the obstacles. The everything in the tool shed approach that you get from some of the most deranged Mario Maker levels aren't designed to be fair. Having purposeful, well-thought-out placements of hazards and enemies is what makes something feel rewarding to approach and overcome. In the Kitamura interview from before, he speaks on the design philosophy of Mega Man 1 and 2 and how the enemy placement is extremely important. He explains that with a set of rules he created for himself during development, it allowed him to make easier or harder sections of the game without making the player feel like the difficulty was too overwhelming as a whole. While these rules at first glance feel mostly intact with Mega Man 3, there's a clear deviation from the norm. I believe that Kitamura's departure from the Mega Man team, as well as the crunch the devs suffered, left a lot of oversight on the level design polish. Placing an enemy in the most likely path that the player is going to take is not bad design. Like, the little Met enemies are usually placed in those sorts of places and force the player to slowly approach and bait and switch out their abilities. What is bad design is purposely placing enemies just outside of the loading zone so that the player can't react to them coming in. And it's like, it doesn't help the player learn the patterns or even feel like they've been challenged. It just primes the player to expect more bullshit coming up. And while the example of a Met forcing a player to slowly approach and an enemy off-screen forcing a player to slowly approach sounds kind of similar, it's the way that the player comes away from that experience that makes all the difference. If you create enemies that show up multiple times, either in that stage or multiple stages, you want the player to learn how to approach them. I don't mean to pull out the sacred text, but we learned this lesson back in 1-1 of Mario 1. That Goomba isn't there to just make a 3-year-old with a tiny frontal cortex cry, it teaches the player how to handle the enemies in the game. Trial and error is how you teach a player, but punishment for the trial needs to feel fair. For example, they didn't just drop you into Bubble Man stage in Mega Man 2 with spikes already above your head. You get time to adjust to the new water physics, then you're introduced to the spikes, a new challenge for the lesson you just learned. It feels natural, it lets the player experiment, then gives them the challenge to play with. Trial and error doesn't work when the trial is simply jumping over a gap and then bombarding the player with a hazard that hadn't spawned in. The likelihood that an attack will push Mega Man into a pit is very high, and it doesn't leave the player feeling like they learned anything. It leaves a sour taste in their mouth instead, with the only lesson they've learned being that enemies might spawn out of nowhere. It's to the point where so many of these obstacles feel like they were straight out of these rage games that Mega Man would inspire down the line. Games like I Wanna Be the Guy or Battle Kid, games with overwhelming difficulty based on this rage-inducing version of trial and error. You know exactly the one that makes you go, well, how the fuck was I supposed to know this apple was gonna fly upward? This is a bunch of ass! That's 2 AVGN references. Keep count. What am I fucking talking about? They're the same exact reference. Mega Man 3 feels like a massive test of patience in all of the wrong kinds of ways. Bosses are a pain in the ass, with most of them defaulting to the pattern of rush and spam. Fights like Snake Man or Hard Man don't feel engaging, they feel like a rush to spam attacks back. But at least when you get through all 8 Robot Masters, you can go to Dr. Wily and wrap this whole thing up. What the fuck is this now? Wait. You want me to refight all the Robot Masters from Mega Man 2 now? You dare invoke Peak in this hellhole? Small tangent before we wrap up. Robot Master ideas are really starting to get a little bit out there. Like, we were already reaching with like Flash Man and Crash Man back in 2, but now we've got like Top Man, Snake Man, Hard Man. Again, these robots had jobs before this whole rebellion thing, right? What the fuck was Needle Man's job? Oh, apparently it was mining purposes. Sure, man. Wait, Hedgehog mentioned! Also, level theming just feels totally off in this game. Stage Man, he hits you with other stages. Shadow Man's stage feels like it was repurposed from Flame Man. Top Man is in a botanical garden for some reason, only has top-based obstacles in like 2 spots back to back. Meanwhile, Snake Man gets an entire snake labyrinth in the middle of a factory. You know, the Snake Factory. Every city's got one. That said, whoever decided that Gemini Man stage needed to be like a cave of robotic embryos underneath like an icy crystal field, like, you good, man? You doing okay? Like, that's metal as fuck, but like, do you need to talk? I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little disappointed in how Mega Man 3 turned out, and I can't even really blame the devs because they were forced to put this game out the door. But like, it's still just such a shame being forced to put this game out and follow up what feels like the quintessential Mega Man game. Either way, Mega Man defeats Wily and his castle collapses right down on top of him. In the chaos, Proto Man saves Mega Man, but Wily is crushed in the rubble. With Wily defeated for good this time, it's on to bigger and brighter things for Mega Man. Oh, god damn it! This game takes place in 2000X, and I wasn't born when this game came out, but like, knowing that this game takes place possibly in the Bush or Obama administration makes me feel really old. Wait a minute, wait. You don't think Wily would have, like, you know, with the Twin Towers, you don't... No, right? After Mega Man 3 burned my crops, poisoned my water supply, and was just shit to play, I admit I kind of lowered my expectations. Finding out that the rush development harmed Mega Man 3 so much, only to see that 4 came out a little over a year later. I'm not saying that Capcom would crunch the shit out of their developers again, but if the money-hungry $1,000 dress shoes fit... I'm not saying I have zero faith in the games industry, but we still have, like, Microsoft ripping itself apart and wondering why the hands are evil instead of stopping the brain. Thankfully, it seems like Capcom let the dev team have enough time to make a game that runs better than a graphing calculator. That or they just managed and learned to deal with the insane crunch time forced onto them. One or the two, but hey! We've got a game that feels like a massive leap over the last one. Then again, that leap was like jumping away from a smoldering pile, so... I mean, the only way to go was up. Before we get into some of the more broader topics I want to bring up, let's talk about some of the new things they added in. First and foremost being the charge function for the Mega Buster, which would be a mainstay for the entire series going forward. Hell, it beat Super Metroid to the punch by just a few years before the charge beam was introduced. It's a really fun ability to play with, making Mega Man feel a lot stronger when not using one of the boss power-ups. Just hold that fire button, tune out the constant cat warbling sound, and boom, you annihilate anything in your path. The charge shot is a very cool ability, and it makes Mega Man feel like his own boss. But the problem is, the way that the enemies have been retooled makes it feel less like a bonus ability and the main source of conflict resolution. Let me put it to you this way. There is a major problem with the health inflation in Mega Man 4, and a lot of enemies can be used to see why. Google Mega Man inflation to learn more. Both the Mets and the Baton, the little bat enemies that look like I'm gonna have trouble saying this name. Both the Mets and the Baton, the little bat enemies that look like Nibbler from Futurama, appeared in Mega Man 2. In those games, they sometimes appeared in groups of 2 or 3 as they were lower threat enemies. If you knew how to deal with them, you'd clear them fast because they only took one shot from the Mega Buster. And while they're obstacles for newer players, it's very easy to learn their patterns for later. But now, thanks to the increased health of most enemies, it creates a schism in the way that you approach obstacles. Whereas before you could bait a Met to take a shot at you and blast it once with your Buster, now you have to make sure it's fully charged beforehand. And while that sounds like I'm complaining, it's more frustrating when there's multiple in a row that are easily dispatched with one charge shot. The player should be able to look at an enemy, discern the best possible course of action, and execute it. In the case of longer hallways with large packs of smaller enemies, it often required the player to dodge and carefully shoot to make their way forward. But now, the cadence becomes charge a shot, kill the closest enemy, then wait until you charge up another one and inch forward to the next fodder. Imagine playing Mario 1 and you get so used to defeating Goombas by just bouncing on them once, and then you play Mario 3 and they introduce the charge boots, and now to defeat a single Goomba you have to bounce on its head 3 times, some even more so. Imagine Mario bouncing on them crazy style. I do think the charge shot is better for Mega Man overall. It pierces through enemies and makes it easier to deal with groups of enemies all at once. Plus, it makes it easier to fight bosses that have the Mega Buster as their weakness. It led to a little bit of health inflation, yeah, but like, what's wrong with a little bit of inflation, you know what I mean? I don't have a good segue to the next section, so we're gonna be talking about the game's art now. There's something about Mega Man's style that always pops. I don't know if it's the bright color choices, the specific art style with their character designs, or what, but every level feels distinctly Mega Man. And so far, I think Mega Man 4 has some of the best of the series. While I still prefer Mega Man 2 as a game, the presentation of its younger sibling here is very quickly winning me over. The character designs from day one have always been immaculate, but it feels like they're really getting into the swing of things here. Off the bat, we've got some amazing Robot Master designs with Skull Man, Dust Man, Drill Man, even fucking Toad Man here. I'm just a big fan of almost every single one of these designs. Even if I think we're still getting a bit on the silly side with Robot Master themes like Pharaoh Man, I can't deny the designs are insanely strong. Except for Ring Man over here. Every game's got their weird little jobber, and like, who the fuck let this guy in, you know what I mean? Alright, fair enough. Mini-bosses are also a big standout in most Mega Man games, but I really like the ones here. This big fuck-off whale in the middle of Dive Man stage is so funny to me for some reason, especially in the later part of the stage where there's a second one just waiting to get revenge. Meanwhile, Capcom decided to make the most accurate boss enemy in existence and made this hippo an absolute fucking monster. If you're ever staring down a hippo and there's nothing in the way to protect you, like, you're a statistic now, man. Goodbye. The level's got a huge facelift this time around, with each stage resembling the Robot Master's theming a lot closer this time. Like, Toad Man takes place in a stinking sewer with water rushing everywhere and pushing you around, and like, Drill Man really makes you feel like Steve Minecraft with drilling into the side of a deep mountain. Or, I mean, you got Skull Man. He's got like this gigantic bone fortress to fight through. It's not practical, but fuck, is it cool? The biggest standout is Dust Man, who should most likely be called Junk Man, considering his stage is like a scrapyard. And the further you get into the stage, like, it turns into like a big trash furnace, and there's fire all around you. It really made me feel like Woody in Toy Story 3, where I was gonna have a tragic ending with my closest friends. Something I appreciate about these stages is that they're leaning more into the branching exploration level design. It's almost Metroidvania in some ways before the games that would popularize it, both with the unique power-ups off the beaten path, as well as multiple opportunities to find bonuses, like climbing just a little higher up on this ladder in Skullman stage, or this pendulum section in Brightman's. While I think Mega Man 4 gets closer to the higher quality set by its previous even-numbered brother, I gotta give it a little stern talking to. I'll start with something a little smaller since it piggybacks onto one of my problems with Mega Man 3. While health on enemies being higher is a little annoying, there's still a lot of instances of enemy placements being a little devious and outright unfair. Dustman, while having one of my favorite stages, has these little rockets that shoot up out of pits when you jump over them. They follow a similar pattern to the way enemies spawned in Mega Man 3, forcing you to bait them out and put yourself into needless danger just to cross over a normally easy obstacle. Or the placement of all these Mets in one of the castle stages, now with their beefier health pool, turns the stage into utter bullet hell. I'm not saying a game can't be difficult or have mean enemy placement. An enemy jumping out of the wall like a Scooby-Doo enemy is like, it can be fun. That can be silly and can be scary. But you have to be really conscious of how many times you use that design, because eventually it just starts becoming obnoxious to the player. Like me jumping out of your closet once could be funny. You call the cops, we have a big laugh, it's great. But if I keep doing it, then it just becomes a little obnoxious, you know what I mean? I'm in your walls. My bigger issue with the game is something that started back in Mega Man 3 and only evolved into something more obnoxious here. I briefly made a joke about it in the last section about how Mega Man 3 made you fight all the Mega Man 2 bosses again right after the first 8 Robot Masters. I understood why they did this, mostly, but it still feels like padding between the first half and the second half of the game. Well, you're in luck, because this time they didn't do an entire second set of Robot Masters. They did an entire second castle instead. This isn't better, Capcom. You've just added even more padding. Dr. Cossack's got like slinkies protecting his castle. This guy was not prepared for this, man. Look, I've got no issue with them bringing in new characters like Dr. Cossack and his daughter Kalinka. Fucking Pokemon ass name. This guy must hate his daughter. Shit, I encourage it. Characters are the bread and butter of this entire franchise. The problem is that it starts to feel like needless fluff trying to add a, oh, it was Wily all along type angle. Having a reoccurring villain is fine and absolutely expected for just about any sort of long-running franchise. Bowser, Eggman, Rayman's parent company, but there's a point where it starts to feel extremely stale and formulaic. Like, look at the new Super Mario Bros. Games. They're perfectly fine platformers and there's nothing really wrong with them. But they feel like a husk, running on autopilot and doing the same thing that previous games have done with just a few new toys. Mario Wonder is a brilliant game that's filled to the brim with crazy fun and unique gimmicks, but no one ever talks about the boss fights in that game because they feel like a mandated you have to use this villain type of bullet point. Like, wow, it's Bowser, who could have guessed? Like, bring Wart back at least once, come on. You got a game all about like weird trippy dream sequences and you don't bring back the boss that was part of a dream? What the fuck you, Nintendo? If you're going to introduce something new to the franchise, I think you really have to go all in on it. I think you could have kept Cossack and Wily in the same game here just fine if you didn't have the whole separate castle right after Cossack's. It kills the momentum of the game, and if it forced you into this big Wily boss fight right after Cossack's, that would have been a more interesting use for that surprise. You can't keep jerking the audience around and expecting them to stay excited, you know? You had all this cool music, unique levels, cool boss fights, the final boss. Hell, you kept the stellar presentation going with this awesome cutscene, but then you pulled back the curtain and revealed the second castle. And now I've just gone soft. I fucking missed my Like, I wouldn't have been as annoyed about the Mega Man 2 refights before if they were used in a more interesting sort of way. Have them be the boss refights before the final Wily fight. Like, I understand that people want to make games a little longer, but I would rather replay a fun game than have a mediocre game overstay its welcome. All in all, after the Grand Canyon-sized pitfall that was Mega Man 3, I do think they pulled it back to form. It's still got some of the blemishes, and they're obviously trying as many new things as they can, but I don't think it detracts from the quality. Would I play this one over like Mega Man 2 if given the choice? Probably not, but it's like my second favorite out of all the ones I've played so far. With that, we're 4 games down, and I feel like the series is back on the right track. There was a little bit of a speed bump with Mega Man 3, but I feel like we're getting back there. For now, grind up some enemies if you need some energy for your boss weapons, take a break, and then we'll get on. I wasn't done! One of Mega Man's weapons in this game is the N-bomb. There's no joke about that, he just goes around dropping N-bombs on his enemies. I'm starting to think Dr. Light is trying to be Dr. White. We're on the last leg of our little marathon, and I gotta say, I'm not having all that bad of a time. Sure, there was a little bit of a hiccup with Mega Man 3, and Mega Man 4 was a bit of a test of patience, but I think we're gonna get right back on track. Oh, Proto Man's the villain now? And he's got his own Robot Masters? Oh god, there's gonna be 2 castles again, aren't there? Being brutally honest right off the bat, I think Mega Man 5 is just the most okay entry in the entire series so far. It doesn't change too much in the fundamentals of gameplay like adding the slide or the charge shot did. Instead, it focuses on refining a lot of the elements around Mega Man's playstyle to make the overall game feel a lot smoother. By that I mean we've come full circle and remade Mega Man 2. It's not that I'm not happy to have more games on par with 2's quality and design. It's more that it feels like we wasted 2 games only to end up back at the exact same spot. I guess it sounds like I hated the previous games more than I admitted, or that I hate this one too, but I don't. It's partly a feeling of relief and part of, well, why did we steer away from this before? I'm coming out the gate a little hot, and I'm not trying to say that Mega Man 5 is bad, but it feels like Mega Man 2 in a skin suit. I had to play through this game a few times just to get my notes in order because I kept forgetting a lot of details. There's a lot of high quality aspects to talk about, but when it comes to the bigger picture, Mega Man 5 just kind of feels like a boring entry in an already bloated franchise at this point. It's the equivalent of there being like another game on the NES between Mario 3 and Mario World, and it feels like the exact same game as Mario 3, but there's just one new power-up now. Like, it's still fun, but I feel like I'm eating really old leftovers. For what it's worth, genuinely, Mega Man 5 is a real return to form that was set back in 2. A lot of the balancing issues with enemy health and obstacle placements were fixed here, with many levels having a great flow that rivals the second outing's pace. Enemies have a good mix of easy fodder and challenging walls that makes you plan your movement on the fly without feeling cheap. Most of the time. I even think the level theming is near perfect. Obviously I haven't played every NES game to ever exist, but by this point it feels like the Mega Man team were masters at wringing out every pixel of detail. The way that the train bobs up and down in Charge Man's stage, or the awesome looking jet ski section in Wave Man's stage. Note, awesome looking, not playing, don't get it twisted. Looks beautiful, plays like moldy ass. I even appreciate them leaning more into the exploration elements started in Mega Man 4, even if they don't reach the same level. Little hidden paths and rooms that you can find with resources, lives, E-tanks. I wouldn't say they're as extensive as the previous game, but it's good that they at least kept them in mind. Hell, they play into the newest secret the game has to offer, the Mega Man 5 letters in Beat. I remember I had a toy of Beat as a kid, continuing on with my consumption of Mega Man media except for anything relating to the games, and I chewed the shit out of Beat's wing, like, a lot, and I pray to God every night that Toy Story never becomes real, because I think that Beat toy is gonna find me and strangle me in my sleep. I've struggled to figure out why I feel so down about Mega Man 5, because it's not a bad game. There's a lot of features that make the Mega Man franchise as good as it possibly can be. I really want to like it more than I do, but it feels like it's trying to be Mega Man instead of just being a Mega Man game. Even the soundtrack is lacking compared to previous games. Like 3, the only one I really didn't click with, still had a few bangers in the soundtrack, but here it feels like we've devolved back to early NES processing, with a lot of songs not having the same depth and energy. I feel disconnected from the stages because it makes them feel less memorable as a whole. Many stages have gimmicks to try and set themselves apart from previous entries in the franchise, with some standing out a little bit more than others. Starman and Gravity Man both play with Mega Man's weight and how he interacts with the platforming. Charge Man has you going in and out of different levels of a moving train and dealing with obstacles there. Wave Man has the previously mentioned jet ski that takes up 60% of the actual stage. The unequal gimmicks combined with the strange theming for half the game makes a lot of it just feel underwhelming. Like, there's nothing wrong with the layouts. Playing the stages feels fine, but everything else around it just feels like I've already played it before, you know what I mean? I want to talk more about theming and Robot Masters in the final game, but I do think there's something important to be brought up. While it's inevitable that you'll find crossover ideas and concepts like multiple Fire Masters, multiple Air and Explosive Masters, it also impedes some of the unique aspects each game has going for it. Gyro Man is based off the ideas of flying and planes and stuff like that, but his stage just feels like Airman. And I know there's only so much you can do with the concept of a Robot Master that's in the sky and flying and all that, but I don't know, like maybe some more plane theming would have gone a long way. Or Stone Man, who looks just like a stone golem from Dragon Quest. His level takes place on a mountain, and it feels like just another rehash of Guts Man and Drill Man. I mean, what theme could they possibly use for Napalm Man that wasn't used in Fire, Heat, and Bomb Man? Oh, that's not the jungle I think it is, right? Did they send Napalm Man in with, like, the US forces? Huh? While this game lacks a lot of the innovation to gameplay we've seen from pretty much every other entry, it's not without a massive improvement. I've talked a little bit here and there about boss design, namely if I had fun or I wanted to pull my teeth out by hand, but I think that the dev team really dug in and figured out how the boss fights in this series should feel. In some previous games, even my beloved Mega Man 2, the bosses felt basic by design. Some of them would just fire all of their abilities and walk towards you, others would jump all over the fucking screen like a jackass, fuck you, Quick Man. And while most had patterns for the player to work around, others would just devolve into a spam slop, as the coked out zoomers on Twitter would call it. I still don't know how to get around Fireman's attacks back in Mega Man 1. It haunts me at night. Just stop shooting. Please, just for a second, just stop shooting! There are certainly attempts at choreographed, well-telegraphed boss fights like Iceman, Airman, and Drillman, just to name a few. Bosses that have patterns and varied attacks, but don't outright surprise the player with some bullshit sudden leap or attack you can barely react to. But here, 5 games into the franchise, it feels like they finally struck a balance between difficulty and strategy. You know, I wrote in my notes that I thought that the bosses in Mega Man 5 were a lot easier in like a detrimental way, but the more I've thought about it, I realized they're not necessarily easier. The older bosses were just way harder based on how they were programmed. By comparison, Mega Man 5 bosses felt like a stroll through the grass when I was used to walking through a field of Legos. Each boss has clear patterns and a flow to their fight that feels extremely satisfying to figure out. Some are a little more obtuse and annoying, especially considering the weaknesses that each Robot Master has, but once it clicks, you feel like a god. Starman was a decent starting choice with his fairly simple shield shooting pattern, but I think Gravity Man shows how what a well thought out boss fight can look like. It's extremely simple, with Gravity Man only changing the gravity in the room and shooting blasts at the player. It's nothing complex, but it makes the player feel accomplished for being able to hit their shots mid-flip. I don't think a boss needs overly complex elements or constant mechanics to feel engaging. You don't want to overload the player with too many obstacles to juggle all at once because you risk making the player feel frustrated. Players should generally feel like they learn a boss through their own experimentation rather than being a war of attrition. One of my bigger issues with boss fights is how much of a major factor the boss weapons are. Like, yes, again, you could beat the entire game just using the Mega Buster, but I think most players won't be masochistic enough to choose that option by default, you know? Boss weapons aren't created equal, though. Some are infinitely more useful, like the goated Metal Blade from Mega Man 2, or even the Thunder Beam all the way back in the first game. Easy to use, quick shots, plenty of energy to miss a few, they work great. But there's others that are so much more niche or obnoxious to handle, especially in the middle of a major boss. Gutsman, one of my favorite Robot Masters in the entire franchise, has an extremely situational power that requires you to pick up these, like, cube things in the arena. But if you use up all the cubes and then you die and don't beat the boss, the cubes don't come back. So you better hope that the boss isn't, like, weak to Gutsman. By far, my least favorite weapons are the shields, because they never feel fun to use. Woodman's Leaf Shield and Starman's Star Crash are a bit more useful as you can, throw them, but the problem is that if it hits anything, projectile or not, it disappears immediately. So if your boss's weakness is the shield and they happen to, spam projectiles like Airman,
Nightmare, 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 nightmare.
Don't even get me started on shit like top spin and charge kick. Oh boy, I love charging into melee range against enemies that have guns for hands. Sure do love having to put myself in mortal danger just to do a little bit bigger chunk of health. Whee! I should have talked about top spin way more back in Mega Man 3 because, like, it is the final boss's main weakness. Like, you have to jump high over the boss's head into his hitbox and keep doing your melee attack in the middle of his head, possibly damaging yourself. Boss design is my passion! Castle bosses are the biggest culprit of this obnoxious design, especially with how little reserve the game gives you to work with. Most of their weaknesses are extremely niche, like the top spin I mentioned, or purposely frustrating to use in order to screw with the player. Both the Mega Man 4 Skull Ship and Wily Machine are weak to the drill bomb, but only the explosion and hitting them with the bomb itself does nothing.
They'll just explode in midair. What do you mean you didn't know how to do that? That's not my problem. Sorry you died. Go back to the beginning of the level, fuckface.
As fun as Mega Man 5 was, it was brutal with weapon energy. Whereas other games usually give you a guaranteed energy before the Robot Master refights, it leaves you high and dry after 7 castle levels to scrounge a win against all these fuckers. And because we learned nothing from the previous 2 games, we gotta have another 2 full castles full of content to suffer through. It's a shame because there's this really strong story progression with the reveal of Darkman impersonating Proto Man the whole time. Facing off with the different incarnations of like Darkman in each castle stage was a really engaging and interesting way to tell the story. On a system that had a hard time showing story beats in a meaningful way, it really went a long way to make the villains seem interesting. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna compare it to Sonic. The way that the Darkman variants work reminds me of Sonic Adventure and Gamma and the E100 series from that game. And like, the way that there's like this off-pitch version of Proto Man's theme on the final Darkman variant that lets you know ahead of time that something is off, it's just like, that's a genius way to tip the player off that something's about to happen. Shame that it's immediately undercut by Wily showing up once again and immediately undercutting a really interesting and emotional story beat. The whole thing ends with a really unfun fight in the darkness, just like Mega Man 4, but this time he's only weak to the secret Beat power-up. And Beat is fine, he hunts down enemies on screen and attacks using energy, but it's like, it doesn't help with the feeling of rehash or unoriginal ideas when it feels like you just copy and pasted Mega Man 4's Binal Foss? What is wrong with me? It doesn't help with the feeling of rehash and unoriginal ideas when it feels like you just copy and pasted Mega Man 4's final boss with a different weakness. If you're going to make this fucker spawn in random spots in the arena, don't make it so that he can spawn on top of the player. Like, I know he's the villain, but even villains gotta have standards, man, fuck! I don't know, Mega Man 5 just feels like it takes 1 or 2 steps sideways. It doesn't really move forward in any meaningful way, and while there's improvements, they're incremental at best. There's nothing that really stands out about the game. The amount of times I had to reread my notes or rewatch footage just to remember what I wanted to talk about was astronomically high compared to the other games. At the end of all of this, you guessed it, Wily gets away, Mega Man saves Dr. Light, and they all live happily ever after until the next scheduled terrorist attack on humanity. I'm not disappointed. I genuinely had fun with this game overall, but Mega Man 5 just feels like a glorified repaint or a ROM hack. Like, if you said that this was your favorite game in the overall series, I wouldn't blame you and I could see the argument, but for me, it feels like after playing these in rapid succession, I've played better and it just doesn't do enough to move the needle. Alright, let's see what we got next. Mega Man 6, last game for the video. Let's go. What the fuck? It's a tournament arc? They got a robot centaur in this one. You're not gonna believe what this horse can do, I promise. So, we've done the child gets kidnapped arc, we've done the evil brother who's not actually evil arc. The only thing left to do when you're a multi-million-dollar creatively bankrupt company that's forced to pump out product year after year is write a tournament arc. It just writes itself. let's take a look at who this mysterious tournament organizer is. I'm sure they're gonna be a really interesting, like, addition to the Mega Man mythos. Surely Mega Man has, like, a supercomputer under that Jimmy Neutron-sized head of his, right? Like, he can't tell that it's Super Robot Hitler underneath that wig and, like, sunglasses? 5 games in and we're down to the wire, and while I wouldn't say that playing all these games was difficult, I don't think I've ever felt more whiplashed. I was expecting a more constant line in quality, where the franchise felt fairly similar and blurred together. I even had this little bit planned where I'd show up in each section looking more and more disheveled with how crazy the games made me. Instead, I found a series that, while on the surface should feel similar, has a wildly varying degree of innovation and issues. To feel the series as far as I've played it peak so early in Mega Man 2, only to immediately crash and burn one game later really threw me for a loop. And while 4 and 5 brings things back to some semblance of quality, I really didn't know where we'd end up. So color me surprised when I boot up the game, start playing a few levels, and start genuinely asking myself if I enjoy this more than Mega Man 2. My golden standard, my A+, being challenged by the game where Wily wears the shittiest Scooby-Doo disguise I've ever seen. This game shakes things up in a lot of ways that feel really refreshing. I know I sound like a paid IGN shill saying it like that, but after what felt like 3 games of stagnation, it felt like the sequel that we should have gotten all along. Now, it's not perfect, don't mistake my unrepentant glazing for ignoring obvious faults, but I mean, I felt like I've been stuck in the desert for the last 3 games, and I just found the coldest, clearest glass of water in my life. What I'm saying is that I'm Jesus for playing video games on the internet. Okay, enough blowing smoke up this game's ass. What does it really do differently than the other games? Well, other than just being the 6th game on the NES when the SNES had been around for three fucking years at this point. Why did you wait until Mega Man 7 to swap over to the SNES? Do you know how much time I could have saved on this video? I think the biggest change, and the change that I absolutely loved playing around with, was the adjustment to Rush. While before Rush was summoned like a quick boost to Mega Man's movement, the devs decided to take it to the next logical level. Just take apart your robot dog and put him on your body as armor. The longer we continue into this franchise, the more I think Dr. Light is a sick motherfucker. By combining with Rush, Mega Man has access to 2 whole new forms, Jet Mega Man and Power Mega Man. Look, Jet Mega Man's even the cover of the game box. That's how much they knew this power-up fucked. And while 2 rebalanced and retooled power-ups from previous games doesn't sound all that groundbreaking, it's how they're utilized in the game that makes them feel that much bigger. First off, and my personal favorite, is Power Mega Man, because it lets me demolish anything in my path with big robot boxing gloves. And when they say power, they fucking mean it. If you fully charge up one of these punches, you can break through the defenses of annoying enemies like the Mets or the flying car bumper shield enemies. Oh, they're literally called shield attackers. Sure, man, whatever. But there's a few downsides to pretending to be Mike Tyson on a bender. Thanks to the extra bulk, he can't really slide around and is more prone to getting crushed. And though those big ol' haymakers can knock enemies around, it turns you into a close-range fighter, which is less than ideal when you're fighting living guns. It's an interesting trade-off because while most rooms feel better with the Mega Buster, I couldn't help but just start rushing into rooms, swinging my arms in a windmill like a maniac. It felt like the better, more fun option, especially considering Power Mega Man can crush through enemy defenses, even if he is a little slower. What the fuck has happened to my life? I sound like a power scaler talking about Goku. The other new form is Jet Mega Man, previously mentioned poster boy for the game itself. And honestly, while Rush Jet was useful in some of the games and outright mandatory in others, I think this is far more engaging to use. It still keeps the idea and execution of Rush assisting Mega Man in the field, while also feeling directly tied to the player's commands. You can use it with trickier jumps, finding secret areas easier, or even skip entire annoying sections of enemies. While I didn't use it as much as the power adapter, it still felt fun every time I had to strap on the jetpack like I was a souped up Buzz Lightyear. Still, just like Power Form, there's a few drawbacks to consider. While you do have your normal Mega Buster this time for range, you can't charge it. Sorry bud, good luck hitting a precise shot in midair with those spitballs, I guess. And just like with Power, Mega Man forgot how to ignore physics and slide. But again, I get it, when you've got an entire dog on your back propelling you through the air, it's hard to defy the laws of existence.
Together, these forms allowed the developers to create more unique obstacles this time. It felt like the type of innovation that the game had been wanting to do for a while now, and flirted with the ideas of like branching pathways or hidden secrets for the player to find. Like, there's this window that you can crack open in one of the castle stages, and it just skips a major chunk of the level and gives you a ton of rewards. Hell, it's even built into the process of finding Beat this time, who is a totally useless and annoying power-up this time. What a reward!
Some levels have Mario World-styled secret exits, which are, honestly, pretty easy to find all things considered. If you take the alt path and beat the boss, you get a letter for Beat's power-up. And I think that's cool. I only wish the reward at the end had a bit more worth than a crumpled up snot rag. But it shows that the devs want to experiment with what the player and the levels can do. You can skip entire sections just by finding the right shortcut, and the first time I did it, I was worried about how much I had skipped. I made my way to the boss door just barely a minute or two later, all because I saw this little cracked part of the wall and bashed it down. It adds to the replay value of the whole game because, like, well, now I want to go back in the level just to see the part of the stage that I missed.
I genuinely regretted taking the shortcut in Tomahawk Man's stage. Yeah, we'll get to the Robot Master theming, hang on. Because the secret you can find in the normal path is so much better. I nearly shit myself when I broke open this wall right here and I heard the Proto Man theme start up and it gave me the equalizer, like, what the fuck? Alright, I've been putting it off for a while, let's talk about theming. I want to say off the bat that I think that overall, all of the Robot Master themes are, artistically speaking, really cool and creative. But when it comes down to the brass tacks and you look at the world as a whole and like, Tomahawk Man? Really?
One of the coolest things about the Robot Masters is that, starting in Mega Man 2, Capcom held fan contests to submit designs for the games. So, in the credits where they show a designer's name next to the individual Robot Masters, that's someone that submitted the design and had their character added to the game properly. And that's a fucking amazing thing for any company to do, and to do so regularly. It started off smaller, with only around 10,000 entries into the Mega Man 2 contest, but by Mega Man 6, Capcom and the devs had to choose 8 designs out of over 200,000 entries for that specific contest. It's a surreal feeling to see such camaraderie and teamwork between developer and fan base, and for developers to see just how many people are influenced by their creations.
No matter what jokes I make about the general designs of any of these Robot Masters, or the final choices that Capcom would make, it is still an awesome thing that they would let the audience participate in the creation of a series that they all cherish. Anyway, let's talk about that Centaur now.
Each game has always had a fair share of weirdo Robot Master concepts, even as far back as Mega Man 2, my beloved. Flash Man, Hard Man, Top Man, Snake Man, Toad Man, Pharaoh Man, Skull Man, Gyro Man, Napalm Man, you know, just to name a few. Their designs are cool and they're integrated into the world well enough, but it's hard not to stare at them and sometimes go,
yeah, that's just a table fan. And while I have to reiterate again, like, the designs of these Robot Masters are great, what the fuck are we doing here, man? This is the 3rd fire-based Robot Master, 4th if we count Agent Orange over here, and now we've had, what, 2, 3 different Ice Masters? What's the difference between a Wind Man and an Air Man? What? Maybe I'm that friend that's just like a little too woke, because I'm pale as a ghost, and I feel like I should be offended about Tomahawk Man over here? Fuck, he is kind of a cool design though. Fuck, I'm part of the problem.
Most of the Robot Masters in their theming are pretty consistent, you know? Tomahawk Man throws tomahawks. Shocker, I know. Nightman does fuck all because I think they forgot to program his boss fight. Blizzard Man does a little dance while snowflakes come down. Pretty straightforward stuff. So when I put this design in front of you for Centaur Man, a character based off of centaurs, what do you think Centaur Man's abilities would be? I'll give you a few seconds.
That's right. He could stop time and teleport. What do you mean you wouldn't have guessed that in a million years? Centaur are trans-dimensional beings.
One thing that sucks is that most of the Robot Master's stage theming feels totally ignored here. While before you'd get a stage for most bosses that match their general theme, it doesn't really feel that way here. Flame Man takes place on an oil rig, Plant Man is in a forbidden forest. Those feel mostly on point, but then you get like Yamato Man stage, which feels completely generic and could fit any of the Robot Masters.
Oh shit, sorry, that was actually Tomahawk Man stage. This is Yamato Man stage. Oh fuck, man. I messed it all up again. Look, this is Centaur Man stage actually. I'm so sorry. Like, you know, when I think of centaurs, I can't help but think of gravity-defying water.
I feel like a lot of the interesting level themes were tossed aside because of how out there the Robot Masters were this time around. Combined with this whole, like, tournament arc thing that basically gets dropped immediately, it feels like an excuse just to have more generic locations. Like, I get it, the robots generally go around and attack themed locations that would cripple society's functions like sewers or power plants. But I don't know, Skullman had a fucking skull fortress or something, even if it felt totally out of place. They try a little bit with some of the Robot Masters like Plant Man and Nightman of all fucking characters, but it feels totally inconsistent. Thank God the levels are fun to play, because Jesus Christ, some of these stages are just totally unrecognizable from one another.
Impregnable fortress, eh, Yamato Man? We'll see about that when I'm done with it.
Part of me really loves that they go completely batshit bonkers with the Robot Master designs. I'd rather them do stupid, crazy shit like teleporting Zawarudo Centaur Man than every game having some variation of Fireman, Flame Man, Elect Man. While they're stupid, I can't help but feel like it gives them more character and identity. Now, if only they could commit to making a new mainstay villain once in a while. Holy shit.
Wow! I can't believe that Mr. X was Wily the whole time. If only there was some way we could have known that it was the same guy doing the same plan with the same number of Robot Masters, with the same fuck-ass castle plot. God, if only there was only some other person that we knew that did that. Fuck. God. Fuck. Curse words are funny. I can't even really be mad at this point because it's just comical how just stupid everyone is in this situation. It's not even a different person like Cossack playing proxy for Wily this time. It's literally just Wily, and he throws off his disguise like it's a moldy pair of underwear. Like yeah, Grandpa, we saw the wig falling off mid-fight. You weren't surprising anyone. Anyway, third game in a row with two castles at the end. Didn't feel like changing that one at all, Capcom? Alright, man, fuck you too.
I don't think Mega Man 6 takes the top spot for me after thinking about it for a little longer. If it's not first place, it's breathing down Mega Man 2's neck just waiting for its chance to strike. But without a doubt, it's the culmination of multiple games trying and failing different ideas. The boss design stays consistent and engaging just as it was in 5. The level design as a whole feels a lot more consistent, like in 4. The game actually functions when there's more than a handful of enemies on screen, unlike 3. Depending on how I felt on any given day, I might tell you I like the general design more than 2 because I think they offer totally different experiences. Do you want a really engaging and thought-out platformer that uses its basic premise to its fullest advantage? That's what Mega Man 2 is for me, the foundation and perfect basic distillation of what Mega Man is. Do you want an evolution of the core Mega Man formula that feels like it's a direct leap ahead from the best game in the series? That's Mega Man 6's strengths down to a T, feeling like a proper growth to the series.
That's a lot of words to say. Damn, this game was really fun. I'm glad that this frantic journey through early Mega Man ended off on a high note and didn't go careening back down to like Mega Man 3's level, because I don't know, man, I think I would have just mega busted my shit off smooth. Not today, old friend. Not today. Alright, but let's head on back to Light's lab and wrap all this up, shall we? Alright, I'm ready to go, Light. Just beam me up. I said I'm good to go. We can wrap all this up. Of course, the one time I'm not rambling, he decides that he's just gonna take his time, not watch the monitor. The stupid Santa-looking motherfucker.
Mario and Sonic get the most credit when it comes to being some of the most recognizable characters in all of games, but Mega Man's no slouch. You could argue that the initial burst of Mega Man games were detrimental to his own popularity, still releasing games on the NES 3 years after the SNES released in Japan. But I don't think it changes how quickly Mega Man found their footing in the growing market.
Nintendo and Sega obviously have their own fan events, merchandise, anything that they can put Mario and Sonic's ugly mug on. But I feel like Capcom really had an interesting relationship to their community where they engaged with them and allowed the audience to be part of the creation process. Like, imagine if Nintendo allowed the audience to create the Mario bosses for every world. Imagine if Sega let, like, the audience create their own Sonic OCs. Wait, no, don't imagine that one. No, go back.
While there's varying qualities in Mega Man's early career as a video game mascot, there's no denying the legacy that he carved out in gaming as a whole. Capcom would pave the way for entire systems that we would see refined years after the Blue Bomber arrived on the scene. The concept of a non-linear game, allowing you to choose your own path and carve your own story by choosing the Robot Masters. The simple control style that allows for skillful expression, rewarding talented players and encouraging replay of stages. The sheer number of abilities and options that the players have to engage with both the world and enemies is staggering.
You figure by the time you get to Mega Man 6, excluding any of the bonus abilities, Capcom had designed 46 different boss abilities to play around with. And while some of them were just basic blasts or shields, there was enough difference to make them all feel unique. Mostly, what I'm saying is that Dark Souls owes its entire existence to Mega Man, and I'm tired of saying it doesn't. While Mega Man would inevitably change with different sequels and spin-offs over the years, the roots of the franchise never really left. He's still blue, he's still got a big gun on his arm, and while the method of killing endless robots has changed, it's still Mega Man at the end of the day. You can take the platformer out of the robot, but by God will that man still be shooting lemons a decade later.
Mega Man was another one of those series that I was always spooked away from due to being too hard, or so I thought. I still had that fear in the back of my mind from the one time I attempted to play Mega Man in one of the collections. But now that I'm older, now that I've cut my teeth on series like Donkey Kong Country or Metroid, I feel like Mega Man would have been my Mario as a kid. And Mega Man is a franchise that's a lot like Mario, with dozens of different entries that I've never tried. And of course, I'm certain the Mega Man X series is way more up my alley than the original series. Like look at X. Look at him. Look at this even more anime-styled robot annihilator. I would have worshipped X like a god if I played his game before a certain hedgehog hyperfixation.
Or maybe I'm just a fan of the color blue. I don't know, between Mega Man and Sonic here, I think I've got some undiagnosed mental illness going on. Still, Mega Man has proven himself worthy of all the reverence and love that he's gotten from all over the world. And honestly, this has gotten me excited to finally dig into the X series, try out the Battle Network series, and just dive into the extensive back catalog of the Blue Bomber. Alright, for my next magical prediction, there's going to be a new game in the X series within the next year or two. I was correct with Shadow Generations and Donkey Kong Bonanza. So Mega Man fans, you should feel grateful. Oh wait, he's stuck in the NFT mines, isn't he? Oh fuck, he's dead. I'm sorry, never mind.